I'm the FCSI APD chair. Here we go. And yeah, thank you everybody for joining today. We're very excited to have another webinar here. This is our second webinar of 2024. And maybe before we dive into the topic of today, I just give a little bit of update on what we've been doing in FCSI APD division this year. So if you are a member, thank you for your support. And if you're just joining the webinar, but you're not an FCSI member, I'll just give you a quick update on what our society has been doing. So this year I've taken over as chair from Andrew Brain, who's happily joining us here on the call as well. And yeah, we've had an earlier webinar this year back in March where we had Turbo Air Bill Smith joined and to talk about the science behind refrigeration. And then at the end of May, we had an event, a networking event here in KL, where we had about 150 attendees from consultants to dealers to manufacturers join us just for a networking event in Malaysia. And we're trying to grow our presence outside of Australasia. So I'm based up in Malaysia here, and we've got now members, and our memberships have increased significantly this year. I think we're now, I don't know what the final member count is. I think we're over 100 members now, Jennifer. Is that about right?
Oh, yeah, we are.
Yes,
Over
we are.
100 members.
Yeah, so no, we're very excited to see this organize or the society grow and have more events like this. And I thought before we jump into today's topic, I'll just share a quick update on some of the things we're doing this year. So I believe everybody can see my screen. So just a quick update on some of the events we're having. The next big in-person trade show will be in Melbourne in early September at Fine Food Australia. FCSI will have a booth there, and Andrew will be hosting a breakfast on the Monday morning. Andrew, anything you want to quickly comment on that?
We've also got three speakers, and the
Now, can we take a
topics.
look at
We should
what we have done with the
mute whoever's talking there. Yeah, so there's going to be three speakers. We've got a breakfast that is on the Monday morning. Everybody's welcome. There'll be registrations for that coming out soon. So look forward to seeing everybody there.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's beginning of September. And then for people who will be in Europe, there's an FCSI EME conference in Zurich from the 17th to the 20th. And then following that, the week after, we will be in Singapore from October 22nd to 25th at FHA HORICA 2024. FCSI will have a booth there, and we will be hosting a session. I think it's on day 3, which from I think 1 to 4 o'clock, we have basically a roundtable panel series. We'll be having a cocktail event as well. So if you are at the show, please come by and say hello. And then the big event we're winding up to next year, which is almost a year from now. Oops. Yeah, thanks, Steve. The FCSI APD conference in 2025. So this is a 3-day conference we're planning where we're going to be having a conference where we have panel series, discussion topics like we're having today on the webinar, networking opportunities. We're opening this up to anybody, not just FCSI members, but there will be special rates for FCSI members to join as well. Jennifer and I are in the final stages of confirming the resort. We're actually going to be in Hoi An, which is just adjacent to Da Nang for anybody familiar with Vietnam. So we'll be hosting it at the New World Resort in Hoi An Shores. So we will be sending more information about this in the coming weeks. Again, early bird bookings and all that we'll get on. And if there's any preferential we have for sponsors and things like that, we'll be opening that as well. But without further ado, let me go into today's topic. So I don't know how that can somebody take the eraser or can I erase? Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. All right, so today's webinar, we're very happy to welcome Joe Schumaker. So I'm pleased to introduce Joe, who's the CEO of Foodspace. It's a leading food service and hospitality consulting firm based out of California and Idaho in the US. Joe started his career after finishing a degree with honors from California Culinary Academy in San Francisco, where then he started his journey by co-founding Cosmopolitan Catering in Sunnyvale, California. In 2015, he pivoted his career to establish Foodspace, which has since become one of the top food service consulting companies in the US. His extensive experience working with major Silicon Valley clients include LinkedIn, Tesla, Google, GoPro, and Palo Alto networks, to name a few. He's really showcased his ability to work with high-profile clients doing not only food service design, but also providing strategies on menu development, or as he was saying today, early optimizing menus as well. Beyond his professional achievements, Joe is deeply committed to nurturing the next generation of industry leaders through comprehensive mentorship programs, further solidifying his impact on the food service industry sector. He is an active participant in the FCSI community, where he's currently chair of our Worldwide Technology Committee, and he is also the treasurer of the Americas Division. He's also recently launched a column on our FCSI website called The So What, where he tries to figure out why the current food service industry model is broken, what has lost touch with it, and how we can fix it. I first had the pleasure of meeting Joe last year at the Margaret River Conference by FCSI, where he was a speaker on the similar topic that we're going to be talking about today. The feedback we had from attendees was it was one of the highlights of the conference, and definitely was something that people will always want to learn more about. So Joe's got a very engaging speaking style. He's very good with lots of visual aids as well, and he's got a very forward-thinking approach to technology, which I think really makes him an ideal speaker for today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Joe Schumaker and to host our webinar. So if I don't mind, before we get started, if I can put everybody on mute, just so we can have Joe's presentation uninterrupted. And without further ado, Joe, you take it away, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Hi, everybody. So yeah, and also we will try and get time for questions at the end. So if you have some questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. That's the best way. And then we'll open up the mics at the end and chat. So hopefully everybody can share my screen, see my screen, and the technology is working. So as Ben mentioned, who am I? I am Joe Schumaker. My company is Foodspace. I actually am hailing to you right now. It is 10:09 p.m. in Boise, Idaho, which is where my family and I moved in 2019. So yeah, enough about me. Let's jump right into it. But you are probably wondering why a chef that graduated culinary school in 2005 actually is when I graduated culinary school, but why I would be talking about technology. And the reality is, I founded my catering company in Silicon Valley. So I was feeding tech companies while being a chef, and I grew my culinary company that way, my catering company that way. One of my earliest clients was actually LinkedIn, and I learned a lot about technology and about how technology drives other industries, but unfortunately, the food service industry has been a little bit slow to adopt some of these technologies. But today, we're going to talk about robotics, automation, and what's next. So let's start off with a fun little video.
The restaurant automation revolution has begun. According to verifiedmarketresearch.com, the robot kitchen market was valued at $1.7 billion in 2020 and is projected to reach $4.4 billion by 2028. From cocktail making to burger flipping, many food and beverage businesses are beginning to discover the benefits of using robots to improve their productivity. But before we get into this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment saying I subscribed, and I'll reply personally to as many as I can. Now let's get straight into the rise of robots in the restaurant industry. If you've ever worked in hospitality, you know just how tough it can be. Long hours, low pay, and if you're the owner, tight margins. As technology advances and AI becomes more accessible, food establishments can benefit greatly from automating the food and beverage making process, allowing them to save money, reduce staff, enrich their menus, make fewer mistakes, reduce food waste, and work 24/7. Let's look at 7 robotic companies trying to revolutionize the way we eat and drink. Firstly, Miso Robotics. They are the inventors of one of the most famous robots in the kitchen industry, Flippy. Their newest version, Flippy 2.0, helps cooks by cooking burgers, managing the fry station, and freeing up kitchen staff to handle other tasks. They've also created a special model especially to cook chicken wings. Under the hood, Flippy harnesses deep learning to identify objects on the grill, allowing the robot to pick it up with high reliability. It also has 3D depth sensing and thermal cameras to know when the food is cooked fully. Among their customers are Cali Burger, White Castle, and Buffalo Wild Wings. So if you want to add a Flippy to your restaurant, it'll cost around $3,000 a month, which actually isn't too bad. If we assume that the average employee gets $15 an hour and works 40 hours a week, that works out to around $2,400 a month. Flippy, on the other hand, can work weekends, doesn't take sick days, doesn't need lunch break, and brings all the added efficiencies that only robots can. 2. Kitchen Robotics. This Tel Aviv-based startup was founded in 2018 and has developed Bistro, a robot specifically built for ghost kitchens. A ghost kitchen, also referred to as a cloud, dark, or virtual kitchen, is a kitchen space devoted exclusively to delivery-only restaurants, a trend that has seen rapid uptake since the global pandemic began in 2020. Bistro, a fully programmable kitchen robot, aims to make restaurant operations cheaper and easier, while also cutting down on wait time by introducing automation technology into the process. The automated robot chef can make up to 60 dishes per hour, the average dish time being between 2 and 4 minutes, depending on the complexity of the dish. And when it's ready, it rolls down, ready for delivery. It only takes one staff member to run an entire Bistro machine. And the best part, the machine even handles the cleanup process, freeing up time for kitchen staff. 3. Hyper-Robotics. Another Israeli company in the kitchen robotics space is Hyper-Robotics. Hyper-Robotics has created a fully automated pizza restaurant. Their first concept comes in a container, complete with all the robots needed to produce up to 50 pies per hour. Each container comes with tons of technology, packed into one box. It includes 3 convection ovens, a conveyor belt system that moves the pizza into the ovens, an automatic slicer, and a boxing system that puts the freshly made pizzas into a box, ready to hand off to a customer in just a few minutes. It has to be said that Hyper-Robotics aren't the only business looking to automate the Italian classic, with Picnic, Bistro, Basil Street, and Pazzi all working hard to bring a pizza robot to your neighbourhood. 4. Sally, the salad making robot. Sally by Chobotics was recently acquired by delivery startup DoorDash. Sally is a salad making robot, mixing up to 22 ingredients from vegetables to salmon and delivering it into a compostable bowl in just 90 seconds. Along with providing a fun and quick experience for customers, Sally also helps fast food restaurants expand their menu and add salads and healthier options without hiring additional staff or adding new machines to the kitchen. Sally comes in a 3x3 foot space and can operate 24/7. From the 22 ingredients, the robot can offer thousands of custom meals and snack options. Users can fine-tune the calorie total of their meal by adding or subtracting ingredients, as well as view a full nutritional detail of their selection, making it easier to stick to their specific dietary goals. According to online sources, a Sally robot will set you back $35,000. Let's have a look at the business case. So if you sold your salads for $10 and had a gross margin of 50%, or made $5 profit per bowl, you would need to sell 7,000 salads to earn 35,000 gross margin, which may sound like a lot, but if you sold a conservative 50 salads a day, it would only take you 140 days to recoup your investments. What do you think? Does it sound like a good investment to you? Let me know in the comments and I'll reply and we can discuss it further. 5. The Mini Bakery. The Mini Bakery is built and designed by Wilkinson Baking Company and is a fully automated system for baking bread. It does all the mixing, shaping, proofing and baking, allowing bread to be sold hot and fresh directly to the customer, just like a vending machine. The Mini Bakery can make up to 10 loaves per hour, saving on ingredients and transportation costs. It was specifically made for supermarkets to sell fresh loaves to customers, but it's very easy to see the value it could bring to restaurants and hotels. From the last few projects I've outlined, you could be excused for thinking that all the robotic innovation is happening in the kitchen. But this is definitely not the case. Server robots and the world of delivery is set to be heavily disrupted by our robotic friends too. Let me quickly outline 2 projects in these worlds. 6. Mana. Mana is an Irish drone delivery startup, delivering food orders and other items by drone. They've already completed 65,000 deliveries across Galway and Dublin. Customers summon Mana using an Uber-style mobile phone app, directing them to an open space such as a drive or a garden. The drone travels at speed up to 50 miles an hour, with onboard detectors checking for obstacles. When the drone arrives at the destination, the customer is invited to tap accept on their phone, prompting the drone to lower the package to the ground. The company's drones at present are limited to packages of 3 kg and limited to a range of 10 kilometers, although the technology is improving all the time. And the good news is it's raised $25 million to expand its drone operation, and has plans to expand into the US. 7. Bear Robotics. At a Tokyo event in September 2020, Bear Robotics introduced their new food service robot, Servi. Servi runs food right to the table and allows servers to focus on creating excellent experiences. Servi is the simplest way to make bussing tables a breeze and is 100% self-driving, navigating space intelligently, safely and with ease, using advanced sensors and multiple built-in cameras. According to Bear Robotics' website, Servi robots have already delivered over 20 million tables worldwide. So, to conclude, the rise of automation and robots in the food and beverage industry may seem daunting. However, robots can be used to assist with difficult, laborious tasks and free up people to do more rewarding work. Mass adoption may seem like quite a bit away, but if labour shortages continue and tech improves, it may be quicker than you predict. Initially, robots can be used to attract customers due to their novelty factor, and in the case of Sally, create additional revenue streams. Innovation in restaurant robots will be beneficial for both business owners and customers, improving efficiencies and, when deployed correctly, the experience for customers. Leave us a comment and let us know what food trends you'd like us to cover next. If you enjoyed this video, then give this video a like. We'll have new videos.
So, videos are always fun to watch because they kind of tell you what's out there and they give you some insight. But before we go back a house, let's really explore kind of the future of food and food service, because some of this is not actually practical in all of the things that we do day to day. But if we're going to if we're going to go there, we need to start and understand who the client in the food service industry actually is. And the reality is that Gen Z is our client, with Alpha right behind them, right? And this is a tech savvy generation. They're reshaping the way that food service works, right? They see the world through a smartphone. They see their world, the food world, through social media. That's the reality. They're making decisions on where to go purchase food and buy food. They're making those decisions based on a whole different world and a whole different reason than what a lot of us are used to. So, really what we need to do is think about what is familiar to them and the types of experiences that they're looking for. Because by the end of this year, Gen Z will actually make up close to 60% of the food service transactional dollars globally. So when you start to think about that, we got to really think about what we're doing. So let's further dive into a little bit about who they are. So first of all, they're redefining, Gen Z and Alpha are redefining the food system. They are technology driven. They're not technology savvy necessarily. They expect technology to just work. They're entrepreneurial spirited. They want to own something. They want to make their mark. They're very community focused. They want to have real friends. They want to shake somebody's hand. They don't want to just communicate with them over, text and WhatsApp and things like that. But they're also very detailed oriented, which is also very different. All of these four traits are very different than millennials. And so as we think about that, we have to adapt to what they're doing, how they're thinking. The problem is this is us. We have the same old thinking, and so all we're doing is getting the same old results, which is why I started writing the So What column as well. So today we're going to kind of identify the role of robotics and automation and what it means for the food service industry. We're going to discuss a little bit how to enhance some operational efficiencies, reduce some costs. We're going to give you a few ideas of how to improve some food safety standards and look at some of the technologies that are coming forward for food safety. We're going to show you a couple of successful implementations, but if you notice, there's a question mark at the end of that, because I'm going to let you be the judge on whether or not that was a successful implementation and something whether or not you can employ that to your practice. And at the very end, we'll talk about how maybe we start to think about designing for the future. So, really, in my mind, we're faced with this challenge. We have to marry smart equipment and robotics, because smart equipment exists today. Robotics in the commercial kitchen, it's getting there, but not quite there yet, right? What is the one thing that we do have access to, though, that we maybe don't think about when we start talking about robotics and automation? See, robotics in my mind is the fun, flippy thing, right? Flippy the robot is fun. It's engaging. People can understand it because it's a robot arm that's flipping a burger. But the reality is that it's data that actually drives all of these things. So we've heard the term big data, but in reality, big data is just the information that is out there. The reason that the food service industry is a little bit behind is because we have not done a great job of sharing this data amongst ourselves, including the manufacturers that are on the call. I will call you out on this, as I have done over and over again, is that manufacturers don't want to share their data. The industry as a whole, we have a ton of data at our fingertips. We're just not doing a great job of collaborating and sharing it. So it's really about how we access, collect, and share and distribute this information that's critical to help move technology forward in the industry. The robotics and the fun stuff, that'll come later. So now this AI buzzword, right? Everybody is tripping out over AI, ChatGPT. It's moving so fast. It's the fastest growing tech industry on the planet. But what is it, and how do we actually apply it to food service? Well, the reality is it's all of these things. So what if we pulled together all of this data that we kind of have, but it's all segmented, and we put it all into a machine learning application that spit out exactly what matters? And what's interesting about this is there was an article written in 2016 that I was a contributor of. And in that article, I was quoted as saying, as I will live in my lifetime where I could have a restaurant manager walk into their restaurant and open up an app on their phone, and it will tell them the 5 things that they need to understand about today. Sally called in sick. Your food cost is 29.3%. It's going to rain tonight, so let's pull out the extra mats and make sure the umbrella sleeves are out by the front door, and two other pieces of information that they need to know. Because in that moment, we've taken all of the data that's at our fingertips and actually put it at the fingertips at the frontline person that matters. So they're managing what matters. They're not working reactively, they're working proactively. That's where we start to actually leverage AI and machine learning into predictive analytics. We're not there yet. We've got fragmented data. So then what are we actually able to automate now? Well, let's think about the things that are in our restaurants and all of our food service operations today globally. POS, that really is an automation tool. KDS screens. If you're still using paper chits, you're already 5, 8, 10, 12, 15 years behind, right? The order management systems that move product, that order products, that takes inventory, that looks at food costs, that looks at labor costs as a percentage. All of these things are actually automation, right? We're starting to automate those things. So if you have customers that are still doing that by hand, they got a lot of work to do. So, but at the end of the day, this data is helping us create guest experiences. And I think sometimes it's really easy to get lost in the why, right? So Simon Sinek says, start with why. So let's start with why. And it's the elephant that's in the room. And he was in the room when I was in Australia. He was still there. The elephant is simply the fact that we have a labor crisis, and that hasn't changed. That's something that we've been fighting as an industry globally well before the pandemic. The pandemic really made that worse. So what are we doing? What are the things that we can do to actually help solve the labor crisis? And this is where automation, and remember I said we've got this handshake between potentially robotics and the culinary world and the human interface. And this next video is going to tell us a little bit more about some of the things that are happening today where we're doing that blend.
DXI is a robotics company, and we are developing a novel product that is a robotic sous chef.
There's a massive need to increase the productivity of chefs and give them the tools to prepare meals for hundreds of people.
It's the first time in human history where we're able to autonomously assemble meals.
Over the past 50 years, the way we eat has really changed. Restaurants have become much, much more popular, which is great, but there are more than 1 million open jobs in kitchens today in the United States, and there's just not enough people to fill those positions.
So in this environment, right, where you have huge turnover, there's an opening for the robot to sort of enhance the chefs that are in there.
Think of the robot like a tool, like Photoshop for an artist. And that's what the robot is doing for the chef.
Alfred is designed to go into kitchens and boost the productivity so that these restaurants can stay afloat and even exist right now.
One of the core challenges is how do we get the robot to be able to satisfy food safety regulations?
With the industry that we're in, food service, there's a lot of extra regulation that comes into play when you're designing parts, mechanisms, electronics to be interfacing with people, to be interfacing with really rough environments.
In food service, you have to satisfy all of the necessary regulations so that people don't get sick. You never want to use a peanut scoop to serve any other ingredient because of peanut allergies.
So it's very important, because our robot uses utensils, the utensils have to be stored in the containers.
Additionally, you want the utensils to be able to move with the food, and that's so that the utensil stays at the same temperature as the food.
I'm gonna pause the video right there. I just wanted to let you guys know, and just the end of the video is really, it's a SolidWorks ad, because DXA actually partnered with SolidWorks to do a 3D modeling of their product. So I actually advised this company in the really early on. They won a competition called Food Bites, and they're talking about food safety. And I think that's a place where automation, robotics, and the marriage of those things actually comes together, because The robot, the actual automation is not a place where we're creating food safety issues. We're actually solving them. So we actually partnered Dexeg with Volrath. So every one of those utensils is actually an NSF certified utensil, and the arm actually engages individually with each of the utensils. So this is actually a product that has popped up on every U.S. Air Force base on the world globally. It's actually making salads for our troops, and that's something that I'm really proud of, saying that I've advised this company on. Starting to see this pop up in schools, hospitals, and also BNI. So, and again, it's not necessarily eliminating a human. It probably can. It's capable of it. Can do about 60 salads an hour, so about one per minute. So, a company that I'm very excited about and very proud that they've taken the food safety conversation to heart and really focused on that as they put their product out on the market. So that's our next topic, is actually food safety. And, really safety should be at the forefront of everything that we do. And safety is another place that we actually do have quite a few automation tools. There are a ton of sensors and probes and other sort of, IoT of things type devices that can interact with a dashboard, and we've got these tools exist. There's hundreds of companies that make these sensors and probes. And so as designers and food service consultants, are we actually talking about these? Are we talking about them during the design process? Are we talking to folks about some of these tools? And some of these are actually fully automated. Some of them are semi-automated, but a lot of them are actually fully automated. And really, they're gathering HACCP data. That's one piece to the puzzle. But what they're really doing is they're ensuring that people are safe, right? And that's going to keep clients and guests coming back. The other thing with these sensors is you're taking the guesswork out of it. As long as they're calibrated correctly, there's no human interface. And lastly, we're actually we're automating what was a pen and paper audit that took a lot of time. So guess what? We're reducing labor again, which back to our elephant. So I want to talk very quickly about a failed startup. And one of the reasons that I think that we're really challenged is that the food service industry has not embraced Silicon Valley tech style early adopter / early failure, meaning we don't invest small and let companies fail quickly. We invest big and fail hard. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have in the industry. We're not iterating quickly enough. One exception to that is this company, BlueStack, who, although they failed fairly quickly. What was very cool about BlueStack is they actually invented a technology that bolted on top of the Cisco Meraki camera system. And what it was actually capable of was not only time and temperature monitoring from a camera-based system, meaning eye in the sky, but it also monitored our employee hand washing practices. So it knew the temperature of the water. It knew how long they washed their hands for. And if Sally didn't wash her hands properly, it sent a text message to the manager that was on duty that day. These are simple things, but these cameras, these technologies, all the AI behind it, it exists. What we've done a terrible job of as an industry is embracing these technologies, helping these startups succeed, and then really helping them get to that next level. So another quick technology that we're going to talk about today very briefly is smart labeling. Because in my presentation in Australia last year, we talked a lot about blockchain and where our food is coming from and how that is really some of the first key to this problem of automation is really just understanding how our food comes to us and food waste. We're going to talk about it a little bit in a second, but the reality is that soon our devices will be able to actually tell us where our food came from and who picked it, who grew it, how far away it came from, all of those things. And so there really needs to be an AI and automated solution at every stage, because as soon as you're missing one piece of this chain, so to speak, one part of the industry isn't contributing, then we're never going to get to a completely connected kitchen, which has to be the goal. So when we talk about the supply chain, we need this clean and sustainable supply chain, but realistically, we need to be thinking about food waste. So this next video is a little bit about food waste, but more importantly, I want you guys to pay attention to the thought process of camera and vision technology, because we're going to talk about that next.
Every day, 1/3 of all food, either harvested or produced, goes to waste. At the same time, 1 in 9 people go hungry. Food is too precious to be wasted.
We are the first hotel chain in the UAE to have embraced the future kitchen. Food waste and artificial intelligence is supporting this ambition of being innovative. We decided to implement Winnow across all our properties because we recognized food wastage as a real issue for our business. And it's a social issue, it's an economic issue, and it's something that we really wanted to address.
Winnow Vision is the realization of what we set out to do from the beginning. It's an intelligent camera that sits on top of where food's thrown away. Our technology is trained to identify what that food is, putting a cost to that food waste, and automatically giving that insight to the chef to help them cut food waste in half.
With the Winnow Vision system, it is really easy to be conscious of how much waste you're producing. You put the waste in, it captures it on camera and it recognizes it. It calculates it by weight and it gives you a value.
The vision system is very accurate at recognizing different products. Whatever they may be, whether it's a meat product or a veggie product, it recognizes it really well, and that is exceptional.
I'm really proud of the results that we've achieved in partnership with Winnow. 1.2 million meals have been saved through this approach.
We reduced our food waste by 72%. We saved about 250,000 meals. In dirham, it represents about 1.3 billion. So everybody wins there.
With Winnow Vision, our team, our co-workers are responding really positively. It's saving them time, it's making it easier to measure, they can see the results, which also, again, provides pride and a sense of achievement.
We see an opportunity for the hospitality industry to adopt artificial intelligence technologies to help them manage food waste. Today, what we're really proud of is that we're saving $30 million a year in food from being thrown away. But this really just scratches the surface. What we're aiming is to save $1 billion of food from being thrown away per annum over the next few years as we scale up our technology.
I really like that video because it kind of hits on a lot of the main points of this topic, right? We've got to start somewhere, and food waste and the food system is one part of it. But again, big data, the buzzwords as it relates to, artificial intelligence, where can we actually apply AI and machine learning in a logical place to actually save money, right? Because when these technologies cost companies money, they're not going to invest in them. You have to show the ROI. And I like this slide, and I've shown it multiple times because really this actually starts with the agricultural industry globally, right? In the US alone, I mean, we waste almost 60% of the produce that we grow. It's insane, right? And I know some parts of the world do a much better job than we do here. But the reality is we need to start with where the food comes from. We need to start with our buying practices. And I think really the key to this is that if we follow the funnel all the way down, the goal is to reduce the amount of food waste that's actually going into the landfill. Well, the only way we're going to do that is if we're tracking the data and we're using some of these tools to change our thinking a little bit, right? It's that slide I showed, same old thinking, same old results. It's all connected, right? And then we get to start talking about the fun stuff like robotics. But the reality is it starts with the food, because the plate of food is the only thing that matters. Without that plate of food, our guests don't buy from us. None of us exist. Our jobs are gone, right? That plate of food moment is the only thing that actually matters. So I'll stop on that soapbox, and we'll start talking about how we actually implement some of these techniques. And, every time I talk about robotics, one of the things that I like to point out is that there's a novelty to robotics, and then there's a functionality to robotics. And sometimes those two things clash. If we can thread the needle of those two things, that's where we actually can really create something pretty cool. So, we've discussed data AI, we've discussed automation, food safety, operational efficiencies, but I know you guys are all here for the robots. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had 150 people sign up because everybody thinks that robots are the key to this thing. But are they? I don't know. We'll get there. So let's talk about some actual robotics that are in the marketplace today. This first San Francisco area. So what was common between Lola and the other gentleman in the video? They were both, maybe either young millennial or older Gen Z. They both used their app to order, although I think one of them actually used the kiosk. And if you noticed, there was no human anywhere in the mix. Well, the reality is CafeX's model actually did use humans from day one. And what's interesting about it is that when the guests were surveyed after using CafeX 3 times, their response was, well, we kind of forgot about the robot, but what was really cool was our barista. I think her name was Sally. And man, she really knew a lot about the coffee and the robot. It was really great to talk to Sally. So the thing is that CafeX can actually produce basically the same amount of coffee drinks as a barista can per hour. It's basically a 1-for-1 swap. So did we actually save any money? Maybe not. But did we create an experience? Yes. If we have multiple CafeX robots, can we potentially reduce our labor costs? Yes. Is it making a more consistent coffee drink? So that is the other sort of art versus, culinary art versus function is something that we always have to consider when we're looking at robotics. When we're talking about something like coffee, a recipe being followed to the ounce is good, right? It could be a good thing. So this next one is actually kind of fun, and we'll let the video tell you more.
Spice Restaurant Boston. You know a restaurant is gonna be lit when it's spelled spice with the letter Y instead of an I. Spice Restaurant in Boston lives up to that challenge by presenting the best meal you've ever had, untouched by human hands. Created in 2018 by a team of MIT grads, Spice Restaurant is described as a culinary experience enhanced by technology. They're not joking about that either, as this robotic kitchen can produce a stunning 300 bowls or food per hour with little stress. In fact, they have gotten a lot of good press from the fact that their infinite kitchen performs tasks like searing proteins, steaming grains, and measuring toppings to create delicious food in less than 3 minutes. So how does it work? Well, they make use of a series of 7 mechanical cooking woks in place of human chefs. These kitchen robots are designed to simultaneously prepare food in less than 3 minutes. The only time human hands will touch your meal is when the ingredients are getting prepared and during the garnishing of the meal to give it that 5-star restaurant look. Eating at Spice Restaurant can be a bit troubling if you aren't technologically savvy, as almost everything is done through technology, including placing your order on a touchscreen and the cleanup after the meal has been consumed. The very best part of the restaurant is the auto cleaning system that consumes 80% less water than the average dishwasher in the process, which is extremely kind to Mother Earth. And the average meal starts at about $7.50 US dollars, which is extremely kind to my pockets.
So Spice got acquired. It was actually acquired by a restaurant group in the US called Sweet Greens. And we haven't really seen quite yet what Sweet Greens is going to do with it. But again, we're seeing, MIT grads that didn't have any sort of industry background, created a startup. They partnered with a world-renowned chef, and they took their technology and got acquired. So these are some of the things that are out there. Based on time, I'm going to skip this next video. There are a lot of pizza robotics out there. You've probably seen them. There's PizzaBot, which is owned by Middleby, part of Lab2Fab. This is a group out of Italy. One common theme that you may notice is some of these robotics companies are actually using these robot arms. What a lot of people don't realize is that we've been using these robotic arms in industry for the better part of 50 years. Why did it take this long to take something like a simple robotic arm that costs less than $7,000 to $8,000, the arm itself? Why is it taking that long to actually adapt it to an industry like ours? We may never know the answer to that. But the reality is that when you partner camera vision, these robotic arms, and a culinary idea, you can actually produce a whole lot of food with a whole lot less humans and increase the experience for your guests. So this is another DexA video. I'm not going to show it here. What I will say about DexA, check them out, because I do think they are the farthest in terms of actually commercially marketing a robotic arm sous chef. Alfred, this is going to be, it's on the front edge of where robotic arms will actually translate into actual kitchen helpers very soon, and in a commercialized way. So check them out. So, one thing that I really want to point out is that all of these things, so Spice is a great example. So those 7 arms are actually creating 7 different dishes. Could 7 different flavor profiles happening simultaneously. So at the end of the day, our guests, and this is a global thing, they want customization. But customization, when a human is preparing it, customization is more expensive. For robotics, customization and automation, right? Customization is actually the same cost regardless of whether, you're doing this, choosing this item or this item. So really, it comes down to interfaced with the guests, getting that information on what they want customized, and then having the downstream be automated in a way that it can create that customization for the guest, which is increasing the experience. So I've got a fun little video to show you. I've only shown this a couple times, and I always get a lot of laughs. I know you guys all have your microphones off, but I want to hear you laughing out loud, because believe it or not, it is actually really difficult to teach a robot new tricks. So as you can see, when they added the 3D imaging into it and used the cameras, the robot was instantly able to pick up the skill. Ironically, I went to Le Cordon Bleu in San Francisco, and we had a whole class on flipping. And I will tell you that not me, but some of my fellow classmates, it took them the same number of tries as the robot to learn how to flip an egg over. But anyway, I find this it's an interesting topic because a lot of people think that the robot just does whatever you tell it to do. Well, the reality is the robot is actually, it has to learn, and if it's going to mimic a human motion, it has to learn. So a fun, quick story. In one of my more recent encounters with today, they are actually teaching the robot how to chop. And what was very cool about it was with their camera technology, the robot arm actually watches a human chop, like, let's say, tomatoes. And so you chop a couple tomatoes in front of the camera, it watches it, and then it picks the knife up. Now, of course, the moment the robot arm picks the knife up, everybody kind of stands back a little bit, but you get my point. What we're doing is we're teaching the robot to mimic human behavior, because the reality is food is a very human and personal thing. And we don't want perfectly chopped vegetables. We want human tendencies in our food. And that's one thing that robotics can't give us. So how do we design for the future? My slides aren't moving. Move. There, tech guy made the slide move. So how do we design for the future? So I'm going to talk about a technology. Although this is a public image, I will say that I am under a very strict NDA, so I can only talk about certain things. But what I will say is that we are very close to being on the verge of having legitimate just walkout technology. Guest comes into the space, they are either identified with their palm, facial recognition, their cell phone, an application, or they tap their credit card on the way in. They choose whatever it is they want. So if it's a cafeteria environment, they take whatever food they want, and they just go sit down and they eat. And that's it. There is no transaction. There is no other human interface necessary, which means now we freed up all the rest of that labor to be ambassadors, to talk about the food, to be chefs, to be culinarians, to kind of create other ways of having an experience. We take the transaction out of it. And this is true frictionless dining. And so the early adoptions of this have been these Amazon Go stores, which I'm sure some of you may have seen. I know they are in other parts of the world, not just in the US. With Amazon Go, of course, you're using your Amazon account. As this technology becomes licensable, that's the word I can say. It is currently already being tested and is in several college and university settings right now, and it's in the process of going into a hospital as we speak. So the reason I bring this up when I talk about designing for the future is you can see this has turnstiles. Well, guess what? We need to have space for those turnstiles. We need to have power for those turnstiles. We need to have data for those turnstiles. We need to be thinking about things like that as we're designing. It's really easy to think about the connected kitchen, right? How many of us designers have started putting data ports or switches onto our hood lines to make sure that there's plenty of future data for our connected appliances? We're already doing that. At least most of us are. Are we thinking about that in other parts of the facility? So with that, that is officially my last slide. So I want to answer some questions and discuss how we can design for the future. All right, so let's see what we got. So with the generational turnover and loss of experience in the industry, how do you see tools such as these honing or expanding chefs and hospitality staff skills instead of dulling them? I actually think that's a great question. So there's two sides to this, right? One is I actually think what we want to automate, in my humble opinion, is mundane, monotonous, repetitive, and dangerous tasks, right? Dishwashing, I think, is absolutely ripe for automation because every organization is struggling to keep and retain dishwashers. And by the way, a robotic dishwasher never calls in sick. It doesn't get overtime, right? Maybe you give it a little oil here and there, but beyond that, it's right. So I actually think what happens is by automating those things, you're now actually raising the bar and you're empowering your staff to know more about the food, to hone their culinary skills better, be inventors and creators. Remember, I said Gen Z and Alpha are entrepreneurial spirited, meaning they want to learn how to create. They don't want to just be doing a repetitive and monotonous task. That's why we can't find these employees. So I actually think that the generational turnover feeds into this from the standpoint of actually growing folks' culinary prowess, ability to understand flavor profiles, ability to deliver guest experiences. I actually think it can actually help us with that. So I hope that answered your question. There. That's it. Oh, okay. Here we go. Wait, do we get one more? Okay. What's the news on AGV's food service meal delivery system? Yeah. So I took that out of this presentation. It was definitely in the one that I gave. We talked about it a little bit. Here's what I'll say. I think that as the technologies get better, I think we will see a resurgence of this in a couple of different ways. We saw the video of the drone delivery. That was one. I think the other thing we're going to start to see is as the gig economy gets tapped to do other things, and I don't know how this is in all parts of the world, but certainly here in the US, we've got gig workers that are, driving now for grocery stores and for DoorDash and Uber Eats and for Uber and for, right? And so we're seeing sort of this marriage of the gig economy winning still in that meal delivery thought process. I will say in San Francisco, we are still seeing some automated delivery happening. It's just early. That's the best way I can answer it. But you're right. A lot have been shelved due to safety issues. There's also been some accidents. I will say, and I'll share this, I run the food program globally for an autonomous car company. And I actually think as the autonomous vehicles become more widely accepted, I think we'll start to see autonomous vehicles delivering food to people's homes. And the way it'll work is you'll walk out to the street with your smartphone and you'll tap it to the car and the door will open and you'll get your food out. I think we'll see actual real vehicles actually doing these deliveries, possibly some sort of motorcycle type sized vehicles as well that are again autonomous. I think that may be what actually wins. All right. Do you see this taking away from guest experience as we try to add personalities within hospitality service? I think this is a great question. I actually recently was asked to speak on a panel at SHFM, which is a US-based, it's a Society for Hospitality and Food Service Management. It's basically the industry for, or it's the association for B&I here in the US. And this was the exact question. How do we automate, use robotics, and do all these things, but then actually really create guest experience? Well, I actually think if we free up people to be ambassadors, to be guest facing and interacting with the guests, just like what we saw from CafeX. The number one piece of feedback from CafeX was the barista was actually able to look me in the eye and talk to me, even though they weren't the barista. They were a coffee ambassador is what they were. And that experience level was actually grown and better because of the automation and the robotics, and it wasn't taken away from. The reality is this fun little device here that we all have probably sitting right next to you guys on your desk like I do, we're hooked to this thing. Even us non-millennial and Gen Z, all of us older folks, we still have these too. And guess what? We're getting used to ordering everything off of this. So where we want the human interaction is when we have a question, or when there's a moment where we are going to actually break bread with somebody, or when there is that plate of food moment. We still want the human interaction, and that will raise the guest experience, in my humble opinion. Robots, machines, and will require maintenance. Do you know the frequency and maintenance would be required? So here's what I'll say to this. On the robotic arms, remember I mentioned these arms have been around for 50 years. The tech that has to do with actually the motion of the arm, that stuff is pretty bulletproof. In fact, as DexA was going through their process, they moved through a few different robot arms. They moved through with NSF to get proper safety certifications. What they found was that the average robot with preventative maintenance being done every year has an operational life cycle of 7 to 8 years. So when you talk about the arm itself being only a value of $8,000 to $12,000, that's a pretty good ROI on the arm itself. Here's where the maintenance piece comes in. We need software technicians to keep the software up to date, the camera techs, the way the AI and the machine learning work and interact with the machine. That's the part that requires a little bit more of a technical and skilled labor pool. That's probably a place that we're lacking, and it's going to take time to catch up. What we need to see in the food service industry is a couple of these large food service manufacturing companies, like what Middleby did with Lab to Fab, right? They acquired Lab to Fab, they bought the technology, and now they are pouring money on it to help grow it and create the network for service and maintenance. And I think those things have to work hand in hand, because let's be honest, the large manufacturers are the only ones that are able to pour those resources into it. Unless we get a well-funded startup, and we just haven't seen enough of that yet. I know we're coming up on time, so I'll take one more question and then pass it back to Ben. Have you seen or heard of fully automated food truck in the US? Are they on their way? So yes and no. Here's what we're seeing on the food truck side of things. We're seeing parts of the inside of the truck. So I'm going to use Zoom Pizza as an example. So Zoom Pizza was and it failed. It was another startup that failed. But Zoom Pizza was an autonomous food truck that did pizza. It still had a human driver, because we're not really legally driving autonomously fully yet. But the guts of the truck and the way it delivered the pizzas was actually completely automated. In fact, the driver never got out of the cab of the vehicle. I think that's where this is going to go. Now, again, I mentioned these autonomous vehicles. I actually think that's the true future of this, where this autonomous vehicle is actually tied off to a hub. That hub is where they get restocked, refueled, and all of those things. But then the vehicle can actually drive out autonomously and go to people's homes. I actually see this also for grocery and specifically for fresh produce, where we actually have potential produce trucks that go out and do. It's almost like the old school milkman that delivered milk to your house in the 50s and 60s, right? Like it's like that, just in the food world. Now, whether that is this weird convergence of grocery and food service, who knows? Only time will tell. I'll leave you with a quick, scary, not quite Terminator thought process, but a scary thought process as it relates to cryptocurrency and the economy and autonomous vehicles and autonomous drones. There is a theory in the tech community that there will be a moment in time where these autonomous vehicles, whether they're food service or not, are actually their own business, meaning they're not actually owned by anybody. They're owned by the theoretical Skynet, and they're funded completely by crypto. Now, the thought process here is that you could then have a drone or a vehicle that rents space from a third party. So in the food service world, this could be a commissary where these things park. And they show up, they get restocked, they get their provisions, and they go out and they do their thing. But they are their own circular economy, and nobody actually owns them. They're sort of just part of the network of the ether of the world. And we all sort of own a little piece of that as it relates to the way that cryptocurrency works. I actually don't think that theory is too far-fetched, because if you think about all the bits and pieces of how life works today and what is autonomous, the credit card system as we know it likely at some point completely goes away, right? Everything will be done in digital digital currency, right? And so if you really think about that, in most of our lifetimes, now I know some of us are younger than others and whatever, that's fine, but in most of our lifetimes, we're going to see versions of that, where restaurants potentially are reliant on third-party delivery to exist. It's the next wave of ghost kitchen. And so I'll leave you guys with that fun and very scary thought.
Fantastic, Joe. Very insightful. Do you have time for one more question? I saw Andrew posted one there about while you're based in the US, do you have any insight into different countries that embrace AI more than others?
Yeah, happy to stay on as long as you guys want. I just was trying to be respectful of everybody's time. So I'll say this: Israel is really crushing it when it comes to bringing AI, robotics, and automation into the food service industry. And I think part of that is because, especially in Tel Aviv, they've got a very well-funded and very sort of thoughtful ecosystem on food tech investment. And one of the reasons that I found out about this, so I was a judge for a competition for almost 5 years called Food Bites, and it's actually there's been one in Sydney, there's been one in Tokyo, they've been in Chicago, New York. Anyway, Rabobank is actually the largest agricultural funding bank in the globe, on the globe, right? And so what Rabobank did was they created an actual food and food tech analytics department. And that food tech analytics department went globally and started investing in some of these food tech startups. And so they created a startup competition called Food Bites. Well, we right off the bat in New York, San Francisco, and Chicago, we had these Tel Aviv-based companies coming over to compete in this thing. In fact, that's where I met Dexe was from Food Bites. Tel Aviv, and I've never been there myself, but I've heard that there are quite a few very technologically forward restaurants that you can go visit that are open to the public. They have every type of robot that we talked about today, plus stuff that we didn't even get a chance to talk about. So I would say that I know that Japan, China, and a lot of the Asian countries have a ton of tech that maybe even the rest of the world doesn't even know about, that we see little blips on the radar here and there. A lot of it has to do also with autonomous vending. And I actually think autonomous vending for, high density, really, downtown type areas and mixed use where you've got commercial and residential together. I think those some of those vending concepts may actually be an interesting thing to keep an eye on and follow as well. So,
yeah, fascinating stuff. Yeah, I just on your point about China, I know I'm seeing a lot of tech coming out of there now too, but I'm just always curious I know I see Bruno Magro here and a few other China-based consultants where they have their own ecosystem. So again, you talked earlier about how manufacturers aren't really sharing data. And I think that's where in the English speaking world, some of that data is easily exchanged. But when you go to different countries, it's learning a different language, and I'm not sure how that's being shared, but we're seeing a lot of interesting tech come out of these regions, but being applied at a commercial food service level. I haven't personally seen it in any of our projects yet, but I know it's definitely on the way, whether it's a copycat or an evolution of previous tech, but it's fascinating stuff. I don't think there's any other questions, but if anybody else would like to post a question, please do now. Otherwise, we will be sending a recording of this presentation. And maybe, Joe, what we can get is maybe some notes, because some of those videos you shared on YouTube are great, and I'd like to, go through them in more time. So we can follow up with a follow-up email to everybody who attended. And then, yeah, please feel free shoot any other questions. I think we'll pass along Joe's contact details as well. So if anybody has any other questions or would like to speak more, feel free to reach out. Other than that, no, thank you everybody for attending. And yeah, we look forward to having you to our next webinar, which we'll probably announce in the next month or so. And as we said at the top of the call, we've got our next event in Melbourne in about 2 months' time. So yeah, if there's anything else, chime in now. Otherwise, look forward to speaking to you soon.
Yeah, thanks very much, Joe. Thanks, Ben.
Fascinating.
And thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Joe, it's Larry here.
Yes.
Can you give me can you give me a phone call, please?
Yeah, why don't you give me a ring right now, and then I'm going to keep it short, though, because it's 11 p.m. here, and I got to go to bed soon.
It's only 11.
But yes.
It's half the night. Wasted.
Yeah,
go to sleep.
Give me a ring. No, I got to go to sleep. I have a 7 a.m. call.
All right,
So.
I'll give you a ring now.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.